That's a good night. Good night's sleep anyway. Only had one critter run down behind me, like not far away, and barrel off somewhere. A little bit of drizzle, nothing too fancy. But you're probably wondering why I've got this Ruger on a backpack trip. It's the heaviest gun I own, and it is quite a handful. The reason I've got the 35 Whelan this weekend, is that it's my birthday today, and coincidentally I'm turning 35, so we've got the 35 cal, and we were hoping to tip over a fairly large animal because typically on my birthday I've shot some good deer in the past, and I just thought it would be quite fitting to bring the Whelan along in here, turn 35 as we are today, and see if we can get a large deer. Back in the day I shot a bloody 30-incher on my 30th birthday. It was like 29 3/4, so bees dick under 30. It might have even been 29 3/4 on my 29th birthday. Whatever. I have to look back in the archives on that one because that feels like a lifetime ago. But anyway, I've got the Whelan loaded up. It's got 250 grain partitions and a pretty mild load. I don't need it to be belting the hell out of me. To do what it's doing, it's a walk 'em up rifle, close encounters. It's capable to 300, no worries, but a bit of practice there, as the drop is not much different to a 308. And that's an interesting one, so read that again. A 308 with 180 grainers and a 35 Whelan with 250 grainers are on the same page in terms of trajectory. The downside to all of this on this trip is that I'm not really in the zone, the deer zone. I'm contemplating walking up, hitting a ridge line for a good few Ks, and then dropping back down on the sunny side. I think that's what we're going to do. I've got no water here. I've got 10 or 15 satchels of coffee and no water. I've got one on the go now. That's just to get woken up a little bit and on the program. I got this 35 Whelan after I initially brought a 270 when I was a young fella. A 270 was awesome, and still is awesome. We shot quite a few fallow with that, and I shot my first Samba deer with the 270. I was using 140 grain nozzle Accubons in a factory round. From there I was reading all the magazines and immersing myself into a lot of media in regards to Samba hunting, and there was quite a lot of talk of needing a fairly large gun. So I went down to the gun store, and that's where I started looking at suitable guns, so to speak. Back in the day, in my mind, everyone had a 30-06 and everyone else had a 30-08. Me being me, I didn't want to have either of those. And the next sort of semi-common round, without going into Magnum country, was 35 Whelan. Originally I wanted to put this into a black stock, but now I really love having an actual one wood stocked rifle that I can take out Samba hunting. It just seems so more natural and really fitting out in the bush. The downside to this rifle is only the weight. But with that weight, it's its saving grace in regards to recoil. Quite a few years ago, when I shot that big deer on my birthday, it was actually with a 9.3x62, but it was in a Tikka T3, and that's quite a light rifle per se, and you're stocking them up pretty heavy with 250 grain Woodleys and 2208. But what I found with that was just kicking the hell out of me per se. I couldn't handle it. I wasn't enjoying shooting it. So I think it wasn't long after that I brought a bloody 7mm 08 in a super ultralight gun. I've played around with 308s and that in the past, but I think they're a real good caliber. And then since then I got onto that left-handed rifle. I thought, I'm a left-handed dude, so I sort of need to start buying left-handed guns. It's a real pain in the ass shooting right-handed guns and having to drop down and change. So that just popped up in 3006. So now I've got a 3006 as well. And I tried to lighten that up quite a bit by drilling all those holes and cutting the barrel down to 19 inches. But that's just a little story on my little arsenal of guns and why I decided to bring in a 35 Whelan this time. Hopefully we get some deer on camera soon and enjoy today as it is my birthday, so happy days. Just going to pack up the camp and move on. See who's out there. Yeah, bloody ripper. So talking about this Whelan, and I suppose it's just like, why would you choose a Whelan, a 35 caliber, over the 30 cals or 270s? And what I'd put forth is the fact that it's got so much weight behind the projectile. Sure, you can load your 3006 up with a 200 grainer, particularly Woodley's, they'll run in 200s and 220s maybe, and that is suitable for the SD, which is what is going to aid in penetration. A lot of the little calibers, what brings them undone is the projectile. They got plenty of bloody powder in them. They got the same amount of powder as the other guns. They're going faster though, because it's a lighter, smaller projectile. That's just the way it is. But it's what happens when it hits the animal that is the big difference. And like this thing, you could nearly call it a bit of a Thor's hammer. Like with a 250 grainer in it, smack. You hit them in the shoulders and that, they don't like it at all. There's a lot of energy hitting that deer because it's got a fairly wide frontal area, and it might only seem like a little bit difference between 308 and 358, but when it comes down to this energy with the velocity, the fact, like the method that's behind all that, well then it changes the game a little bit. So the trajectory is pretty similar to the 308 with a 180 grainer, typically talking out to 300 meters. There's not like you have to aim right up here just to hit it over here. It's not crazy like that. It would be 15-20 inches, whatever, which is a backline hold all day of the week. And then if you've got a scope with like the hashes, then you might be the first or second, probably a second hash. That's not a big deal. The velocity, this one's not stoked up real high, but it's down in around 2300 at the moment, and it might even be lucky to push that. I got these rounds off a fella who passed away. He was on the forum, but his mate gave them to me. Me and the guy the ammo belongs to actually used to clash quite a bit, for whatever reasons, but I guess we were both pretty bored and just on the internet all the time. So rest in peace, old Optic, but cheers to the bro for handing out the ammo. He didn't know anyone else that had a 35 Whelan, so we went into an Oz Hunt Wanangata get together, and next minute Ipsh handed me a whole bunch of rounds. I pulled them apart just to be sure what was in there, because I couldn't really trust the old fella, and found that they had a minimum or below minimum starting load loaded, and they're actually nozzle partitions. And nozzle partitions are quite an expensive bullet, something I'd never really buy, but I've heard so much about them that I thought, mad not to give them a couple of whirls on the deer. So yeah, that's what we're running here, and that's why we're running them. I have got a whole bunch of Spear and Hornady 250 grain projectiles that I'll load up in due time. But this gun's kind of just not my backpacking gun at all. It's just the fact that we were talking before that it's 35. And coincidentally, one of the bigger deer I've pulled out of here has been 35 inches wide, so we're hoping to repeat that, which probably won't happen, especially not the fields at the moment. It's more of an adventure hunt at the minute. But what this does is just has the insurance when you are stalking deer that at any angle that deer is, and I do not condone shooting them up the arse, etc. That's not what I'm saying. It could be standing away or fleeing slightly, or it could be angling towards you, or it could be dead straight on looking at you. With a 35 Whelan, I have absolutely no question or doubt that this 250 grain projectile is going to go the entire length of that animal. It's going to expand, and it's going to hold together, and it's got the oomph to get right through. If it hits dead center point of the shoulder blade, it'll go through there. If you hit it in the front, hit it in the spine, it's going to barrel the spine out the back. Would you have confidence with a little 270, 130 grainer to do that? Absolutely not. You'll have to place a shot or pick a shot to get in between the shoulder blades in the front end or behind the shoulder as it's going away. All of which isn't a bad idea, but if you can sit there and really place that shot. But if it's on the bolt coming up out of a gully or whatever, your instinct is just, as soon as you get fur in there, you're trying to get a shot on it. That's where these things come in a bit handier. And I said you can get away with loading up a 180 grain or slightly heavier projectile in the 30.06s and 308s to replicate the same sort of thing. A good, strong, solid, bonded projectile in 30 caliber is going to do exactly the same sort of thing. It's going to hold together. The cup and cores, or what you call a typical soft point, that's where it can really come apart, is the jacket and the lead inside it is just not bonded together. The jacket's just wrapped around the lead. So yes, it's 180 grain weight, but when it hits, it starts shredding, and once they shred a little bit too far, sometimes they can just rip the jacket straight off and the lead goes in and doesn't super duper penetrate like it should. And that's what will happen with the lighter guns. They're just going to hit something hard and shred apart, you could say is the better word, I feel. Or pancake up, and that slows the penetration going into the vitals. So yeah, you might hit him fair bang in the shoulder, but it's only gone in 5-6 inches, and we need to go 10 inches in there to smack the heart or get both the lungs, you know what I mean? So there's not necessarily the fact that sambers need big guns to be killed, it's just that there is a whole lot more insurance if you can handle those big guns, that when you are in close quarters, that it's going to be, you're going to be sure that you're going to get penetration and strike through their vitals. If you are able to pick up deer across gully more often than not and place shots on somewhat unalarmed deer, that's where your smaller calibers come into play and are just as useful with the right bullets. But that's enough about that for now. Lunchtime, we'll keep on trucking.